I'm really kind of excited about this. I'm going to be reviewing films. Just uh, I might try and use like a funny approach sometimes. I don't know what I'm doing. Hello, everyone. Jacob Waldorf here, and I am starting a new section on my YouTube channel, which I am very excited about. I am going to be reviewing movies. The way I'm going to rate these films is I'm going to look at 4 different elements. I'm going to look at the quality of the film, I'm going to look at the storytelling in the film, I'm going to be looking at the message of the film, and I'm going to look at how much I enjoyed the movie, just me personally. Then I'm going to rate each of those 4 on a 10-star rating system. And then I'm going to take all of those ratings and add them together and come up with an average of what the entire film is rated. The first one is quality. I'm going to be looking at things like, how good does the film look? How good is the acting? How good is the music? Just the kind of the production quality of the film and how high the production quality is. And then for storytelling, I'm going to be looking at more like story structure and just direction, because the director kind of handles the creative side of the film. So I'm going to be looking at, how well was it directed and cut together, and kind of like how good is the story, and how well is it executed. And then for the message of the film, I'm going to be looking at the underlying themes, what I think the filmmakers are trying to say through the movie, and kind of their worldview, and how good is it? How accurate is it? Is it teaching people good lessons or bad lessons? And I'm going to be rating that as well. And then the last category that I want to look at is just how much did I enjoy the film? Because sometimes I'll watch a movie and I can see critically this is a terrible movie, but it was a lot of fun and I had fun with it. So I'm going to be counting that into the equation as well. I have recently become a huge fan of the superhero film genre. So I thought it fitting that I start out my movie review section on this channel, reviewing all the superhero films that I can get my hands on. Today I am kicking off my series of superhero film reviews with Man of Steel, the opening film for the DCEU. It's the one that kicked it off, and it's kind of a controversial film, so let's get into it. So, Man of Steel Man of Steel was directed by Zack Snyder, and it was released in 2013, I believe. And it tells the story of Kal-El, aka Superman, who his home planet of Krypton was destroyed, and he is sent to Earth by his parents in a spacecraft. And it's his story of how he grows up and discovers who he is and finds his place in the world. And this film is a very pretty movie. It's shot really well. The cinematography is all very good. It's not anything super special, I don't think. It's framed really well. It's got a very muted color palette. I watched the movie a couple days ago before this review, and I was noticing that it's very like sepia toned. It almost looks like a war movie, like Saving Private Ryan or something. It's got that kind of very desaturated look to it. And I know Zack Snyder was kind of going for like a more gritty, realistic universe, and he does that with some of his cinematography too. I was noticing he does a lot of like jump zooms, and he also does a lot of like handheld shots, and not just in like the action scenes. It's mostly in like when people are talking and stuff, and it really kind of gives it almost a documentary feel. The movie looks and sounds beautiful, and the score is also quite good. It's by Hans Zimmer. For the quality, it's all really good, and I'm going to give it an 8 out of 10 stars. Now I want to examine the storytelling elements of the movie, and this for me is where this movie suffers a little. There's a lot of flashbacks to Superman's childhood throughout the film. Um, and there doesn't seem to be much rhyme or reason to where these flashbacks are placed. It's just kind of like, oh, we need to show you this thing that happened earlier for something to happen later, and they just kind of like plug it in where it's necessary. And so the movie doesn't really feel like it builds to the climax like it should. It just kind of feels more flatlined. Most of the film carries itself pretty well, but it does have these moments of lag that do get a little bit uh, boring almost. And it feels really bloated and large and probably could have been cut down a little bit. There are amazing action sequences. Zack Snyder does a fabulous job of directing the action sequences. And those are probably some of the most exciting parts of the movie. The best parts of the movie, I would think, are the action scenes. They try to insert this romance between Superman and Lois Lane, and the whole thing really felt forced. Like it just kind of happens, and I was left there like, okay, all of a sudden they like each other. That's cool. I don't really share the general public opinion of this movie that it's you know a poor portrayal of Superman, and I really don't have too much attachment to the comics. What I do know of the comics, I will try and incorporate into my reviews a little bit, because trying to please the comic book fans is obviously part of the job of the filmmaker. But I'm not basing, I'm not gonna. If it's a good movie, but it's different from the comics, I'm not gonna complain because the movie was good. Even if it was different from the comics, it's still a good movie. So that's kind of my working principle here. One of the coolest things about Superman in the cartoons, I think, is that he is saving people who can't, help themselves. Superman can't die. That's just that's who he is. He's indestructible. It's that these common, ordinary human beings are in danger, and he shows up and rescues them, is the cool part. And I don't think this film focused enough on the people in danger, because it was too focused on Superman himself and his troubles. And the last fight scene, there are people in danger, but it's just kind of like an afterthought of the bigger quest, I guess. I am going to give the storytelling in Man of Steel 5 stars. And I want to say up front that I am a Christian and my faith is very important to me. I believe that the Bible is the Word of God and that it means what it says it means and that it is historically accurate in everything that it talks about. And I believe that the resurrection is a historical fact. I believe that the world was created in 6 days and that is a historical fact. I believe that the flood was something, the worldwide flood was something that actually happened. I'm not trying to bash any particular religion or belief system. I'm just telling you what I believe and what I thought about what this movie taught and said and the messages and themes and lessons, good and bad, that this movie put forward. Zack Snyder kind of has this thing going on with Superman. There's almost this Jesus analogy that gets strung through the Superman story, and he's kind of like this Christ figure. The most obvious moment is when he's talking to Jor-El, his space dad, and Lois Lane is in trouble at the time, and his dad tells him, you can still save her, Cal. You can save them all, and he kind of like turns and floats out into the space, but his hands are shaped like a cross. So there is kind of this weird Christian analogy thing going on, and in a way, part of me is like, that's kind of cool. I'm also kind of on the fence with it because, it's also kind of just reduces Christianity to, space aliens, and you can take it as seriously as you can take Superman. Everybody knows Superman is fake. There are some really good lessons in the movie about just, basic stuff like heroism and sacrifice, obeying your parents. Superman on multiple occasions, well, one specific occasion, he obeys his dad even though he really doesn't want to. There are some not so good lessons. Lois Lane kind of like disobeys the law several times. There is several cases of cussing in this film. Nothing too terrible, but it's a PG-13 film, and there's some cussing in there. It's also a rather violent film, and I don't mean it's like gory. There isn't blood really, but there's a lot of people punching other people and tossing them all over the place in really like harsh ways, like people getting smashed in the face and crashing through buildings and stuff. The other thing that you'll see in the movie is that the evolution is kind of assumed. There's one point at which a character says that they have an evolutionary advantage over another character. They mention the date of a glacier or something, and it's like 28,000 years old, which is way older than a creationist, a literal 6-day creationist model holds to, but it fits with the evolutionary time frame. So there is that. But overall, it's a fairly decently clean movie, and there are some good lessons to be learned, and you really have to decide yourself what you think about the whole Jesus analogy. I know some people who really like that about this movie and think it's a good thing, and it definitely could be a good conversation starter for you and maybe younger family members. Although I don't know that I recommend showing this film to little kids. I will rate the message category of Man of Steel with 5 stars. So the last category is really easy, but kind of fun for me anyway. It's just enjoyment. How much did I like this movie? And I have seen this movie probably 4 times, and I've enjoyed it every single time. I actually really kind of like this movie. I think it's kind of unfair that it gets the flack that it does. It's not a great movie. It's not, it has problems, definitely, but it is kind of a fun movie. Like I said, the action scenes are really phenomenal, and I still enjoy them to this day. So I'm going to give the enjoyment category in this review an 8. After taking all of the different things that I just talked about into account, Man of Steel gets 7 out of 10 stars. So, if you've gotten to the end of this review, congratulations. Please hit the like button, subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next review. You have a phantasmal day. One of my favorite parts in the entire movie, it's actually quite a long sequence, but the whole Smallville battle is probably the best part in the whole movie. And specifically where Superman comes in and rescues his mom from General Zod. You think you can threaten my mother? That's cinematic gold there. I'm just like, yes, so cool. Yeah. There is that moment where Zod is he's looking at his hand, and like everything's coming at him all at once, and he can see his skeleton under there and stuff, and then he like sits there and he like scowls really hard at it and like focuses, and all of a sudden it like everything comes clear, and I was like, I just saw Superman spend half his life trying to figure this out, and then Zod just like frowns at it, and all of a sudden it goes good for him, and I'm like, okay, that's he can focus really good. That's his superpower. Yeah. So yes, my favorite character in the movie is probably Mr. Kent. I don't know that I remember the man's first name. He feels really like a real person to me in this film. I don't know, and he has that one great scene in which he goes back to save the dog and ends up dying by the tornado, and he tells Superman, don't save me, and it's just I really like that scene. It's really touching, one of the most emotional moments in the film for me, and it really I don't know, he's just a great guy, and I just really like him.